Karen, I have a favor to ask of you. I'm on leave from my part-time job since I injured my arm and am unable to work at this moment. Life is difficult and I don't get paid if I don't work. Could you provide me a loan so I can partially pay for my living expenses? My mother-in-law and husband conned me out of money. I later learned that my husband was having an affair and that my mother-in-law was gambling with the money because I trusted them and wanted to support them. When I learned the reality, I felt totally deceived. They became irate when I addressed them. When I finally decided to file for divorce because I could no longer stand it, they made fun of me and said that since I had only completed junior high school, I would never be able to get married. Having me as their daughter-in-law made them happy. I learned that simply divorcing them wasn't enough after hearing their hurtful remarks. I was unable to overlook their deceit. For what they done to me, I demand compensation. Gadon is my name. I've been married for 5 years and am 27 years old. Paul, my spouse, is employed at a clothes business. I worked as a server at a family restaurant, and that's how we first met. One day, feeling lonely and lacking much experience with guys, I said yes when he asked me out. My dad left us after having an affair, which resulted in my parents' divorce, so I grew up with my mom. Despite her best efforts, my mother was unable to work when I was scheduled to start high school due to illness. To support us, I had to drop out of school and go to work. I met Paul, who was older than me, a few years later. He brought me to a lot of places and seemed attractive and mature. When he inquired, "Where should we go next time?" I was deeply moved. A trip to the spa sounds delightful, and the seashore sounds nice, don't you think? I hadn't done much of it previously, so his plans felt novel and intriguing. My hubby was like a fairy tale prince, always taking me somewhere new. 5 months into our dating relationship, I made the decision to marry him because I was so captivated by the image of the perfect existence. My mother told me it was too soon, but she didn't press it too hard, possibly because she felt bad about not being able to give me my entire adolescence. After her full recovery, my mother resumed her job. It's possible that the fact that my spouse was raised by a single parent as an only child affected our decision to marry. My mother-in-law was so sweet and friendly when I first met her, but I couldn't help but feel uncomfortable with her and despise her. My spouse told me not to worry about it when I brought it up to him. When I initially met your mother, I was also anxious. You'll get used to it, and I'll help you if something goes wrong. My mind was relieved by his consoling words, although at the time I wasn't really sure who he was. We opted to purchase a condo after getting married rather than continue renting. It's wiser to buy a condo and pay the mortgage, he stated. It will eventually turn into a benefit. It will be simpler for you to have the mortgage approved in your name because you, Karen, have more work experience than I do. I wholeheartedly concurred and was delighted to share my home with him. I was requested to work night shifts soon after we moved in together. I consented since I find it difficult to say no, despite the fact that it meant our time together as newlyweds was limited. He asked, "Hey, I'm sorry you ask, but could you lend me some money?" One day while we were both taking the day off and resting at home. Startled, I questioned why he wanted it so urgently. "Sales at the store have dropped, and my salary was cut," he said, looking serious. "I wanted to avoid worrying you." "That must be tough," I responded, feeling sorry for him. "You should not fear. I will assist you. There's no reason to feel bad about it because we are a couple." He inquired, "Do you still have some savings?" "Yes, just a little, but I'm making more with the night shifts, so I'll cover for you," I said. He thanked me, and I kept on providing him with financial support, but I eventually forgot how much I was giving him. Everything should have been all right since I had lent him the money, but my mother-in-law unexpectedly arrived. "Lisa, what brings you here?" I questioned, taken aback to realize that she had an arm bandage. "Karen, I fell down the stairs and broke my right arm," she said. "Oh my, how are you doing? Have you discussed this with Paul?" "No, I don't want to worry him, so I haven't mentioned it yet." We took a seat in the living room after I invited her inside. I'm here to beg for a favor from you, Karen. With this arm, I'm unable to work, and I'm on leave from my part-time job right now. I don't get paid if I don't work, and life is difficult. Could you please provide me a loan so I can pay my living expenses?" Me? Surprised, I asked. Indeed, there are topics I am unable to talk about with Paul. The only person I can ask is you. I lent her $3,000 because I felt compelled to do so and thought it may strengthen our bond. I had to take money out of my savings to support my mother-in-law because I had been giving my husband the additional money I made working night shifts. I found this to be difficult. I attempted to cook at home and make my husband lunch even on my days when I was really fatigued in an effort to save money. I used to eat fast food or go without meals in order to save money. While doing some housework during this frugal period, I discovered a strand of blonde hair. I was really disturbed because it was obviously neither mine nor my husband's. This had to be evidence that my spouse was bringing someone into our house while I was at work as part of an affair. Feeling upset, I began looking for additional proof. I later discovered one of his pay stubs. When I checked it, I saw that there had been no reduction in his pay at all. It was actually higher than he had previously informed me. His lies about the money and his adultery startled me. I went to see my mother-in-law because I didn't know who else to ask, and I was thinking about the money I had lent her. I knew she would stand by me, but when I got closer to her house, I was astounded to see my mother-in-law leaving a casino. "Lisa, what are you doing here?" I asked. She was shocked, but she made an effort to remain composed. She answered, "Karen, why are you here?" "You were playing slots when I arrived to talk to you." Bewildered and upset, I answered, "I thought you said you were out of money." "I barely touched that money," she remarked. "Isn't that the money I lent you?" I inquired. "No, it was simply a small amount left over from my previous paycheck," she answered. "I'm paying my living expenses this month with the money you lent me." Though I didn't believe her, I chose not to pursue it further because I was more worried about my husband's problems. "Karen, I will not be receiving a wage for the remainder of the month as I had to take a leave of absence. Could you please give me a little loan so I can pay my living expenses?" she inquired. It was clear that she was lying. Even the brace on her arm had come off of her. But in order to maintain our cordial relationship, I chose to give her the money. "Sure, but could we just have a little chat?" I stated. "Karen, thank you very much for your understanding," she exclaimed. "It's such a relief," and we returned to her home. I told her everything about my spouse as soon as I was inside. "Ah, men are liars. When I was younger, I experienced a great deal. Karen, why don't you try retaliating?" she said, startling me with her unsuitable counsel. "Regarding the money, I'm unsure. Paul and I haven't spoken in a while, so perhaps hold out a little while longer," she said insensitively. "He'll probably pay everything back at once," which stopped me cold. "So, may I borrow the money now to cover my living expenditures for the upcoming month? I'm going to have some bills to pay," she insisted. "What? This day? Could you return at night, in a week?" I inquired. "That's all right," she said. 2 weeks later, on my day off, I planned to confront my husband in front of her. The day arrived, and I eagerly awaited them at home. She arrived first. "Karen, I'm here," Lisa said. "Please come in," I replied. "It's okay. I'll just stay here. I'll leave as soon as I get the money. I don't want to overstay my welcome in a newlywed's home," she said hesitantly, but it was clear she was only interested in the money. It seemed she had lost interest in seeing her son. "Lisa, you don't need that arm brace anymore, do you? Then there shouldn't be a problem meeting Paul. He'll be back soon, so please wait in the living room. I'll give you the money secretly so Paul doesn't know." "Don't worry," I said. "Yes, I might as well see Paul after a long time," she agreed. I had invited her over to confront my husband with her present. If she left now, my plan would fail. Even if she was using me, I needed her to stay. I needed to use her to protect myself. She sat quietly in the living room, drinking coffee, looking like she didn't want to stay long. Then my husband came home. On my days off, he'd always came home at the same time, as if to show he wasn't cheating. "I'm home," he said. "Welcome back. Your mother is here too," I replied. Paul looked surprised. "Mom, what are you doing here so late?" "I just came to see how you and Karen are doing," she said. "Really? That's unusual. First, sit down. I'll make some coffee." I made coffee and the three of us sat in the living room. Even though it was rare for them to be together, my husband and mother-in-law barely spoke. The silence was strange, almost like they didn't care about each other anymore. But this quiet moment gave me the chance to bring up the real issue. "Actually, there's something I need to ask you," I said. "Since your mother is here, I'd like her to hear it too." "What do you want to ask?" he replied. I pulled out the strand of blonde hair and showed it to them. "What is this?" Paul's expression changed. "I don't know, maybe it's someone else's hair," he said, clearly annoyed. "I found this while I was cleaning your room," I continued. "Well, I deal with a lot of people at work, so it must have stuck to my clothes." I decided to confront him directly. "Are you cheating on me?" "What? Of course not. Are you doubting me just because of that?" he snapped. "It's not just the hair. There's other evidence too," I said, though in reality I had no other proof. I just had a strong feeling he was being unfaithful. "What other evidence? Be specific," he demanded. Not wanting to push further, I quickly changed the subject. "Also, your salary hasn't been cut, has it? I found your pay slip while cleaning." "Why are you looking at that without permission?" he shot back. "First, I want the money I've lent you back," I said firmly. "Why all of a sudden? You know I can't pay it back. Didn't you say we shouldn't strain ourselves because we're family?" "I didn't lend you money so you could use it for cheating," I responded. "I'm not using it for cheating," he protested. "So you admit to cheating?" I asked, pressing him. "That's a dirty trick," he accused at that moment. I realized he had indeed been unfaithful. Whatever feelings I had left for him were gone. Ignoring Paul's reaction, I turned to his mother, Lisa. "If I can't get the money from Paul, I can't lend you any more," I said. "Karen, that's not fair," she replied. "I came all this way just for the money. That's so cruel." It was clear that both Paul and his mother only cared about themselves. They didn't see any problem with Paul borrowing money from me without his mother knowing, or that he was having an affair. It felt like they saw our marriage as an opportunity to take advantage of me. As the situation worsened, I knew I had to make a decision. "I can't live with you anymore. I'm filing for divorce," I said. Paul and his mother were shocked by my words. "If you divorce, you'll never be able to marry again," Paul sneered. "So you've always looked down on me like that?" "Yes, because you're just a high school graduate," he replied. "How does education have anything to do with marriage?" I asked, but his insult still hurt me, even though I expected it. "Karen, calm down," his mother interrupted. "You just want my money, right?" "That's not true," I replied, "but I can't lend you any more money, and I need you to return the $3,000 I lent you before." "What will you do?" I asked, watching her expression change. "If that's the case, fine. I have no further business here," she said, showing her true feelings. I realized then that I was just an ATM to her. She sighed, clearly fed up. "I'll finally be free from this unpleasant daughter-in-law. I don't mind if you divorce." Paul seemed uninterested, looking at his phone. "I don't want anything to do with you anymore," I said, placing the divorce papers I had prepared in front of him. "You had this ready?" he asked. "I've already filled out my part. It just needs your signature. I'll come to pick it up tomorrow." Paul and his mother looked at the divorce papers without any emotion, saying nothing. I quickly left the house and went straight to my parents' home. "I'm back," I said when I arrived. "What happened? Why are you here alone so late?" my mom asked. "Mom, I think I rushed into marriage. I should have listened to your advice. I admit it." "What exactly happened?" she asked. I explained everything to her. So, that's what was going on. I should have opposed it more. I'm really sorry. It's not your fault, but I'm not going to end it with just a divorce. I'll get back the money I lent them, and I'll seek the right compensation. But do you have proof of his cheating and debt? She asked. It's okay. I had a feeling this might happen, so I recorded all our conversations earlier, I said, showing her the recorder. Thinking ahead like that, you're quite something, she said. Yes, unfortunately, my prediction was right. I'll talk to a lawyer tomorrow. Indeed, you can't just let this go. If there's anything I can help with, don't hesitate to ask. Thank you, Mom. Can I stay here for a while? Of course, this is your home, my mom said. I really appreciate it, I replied. That night I couldn't sleep, filled with humiliation and disappointment. The next day I went back to my house to get the signed divorce papers and made sure Paul had signed them. Then I went straight to the condo management company to start the process of selling the condo. Since the title was in my name, everything went smoothly. I had no intention of living there anymore, and I didn't feel the need to inform Paul. The property was mine. I'd bought it and paid for it, so there was no reason to let my estranged husband live there. At the same time, I hired movers to take out all the household items which I had bought and owned. A few days after the move, Paul called, shocked to find the house empty. What's going on? The TV and fridge, everything's gone, he exclaimed. Since I pay for everything myself, why should I leave them there for you? Never set foot in this house again. Your belongings are no longer here, I replied calmly. His reaction was predictable. He was upset. But the situation was far from over. A few days later, after a visit from the condo manager, Paul called again. What are you doing? Why did you sell the condo? You even took the TV. That house is mine, he yelled. I pay for the condo entirely, and it was registered in my name. Since I no longer want to reside there, it makes sense for me to sell it, I said. Avoid being foolish, he questioned angrily. Where am I expected to live now? That is not an issue for me. Why don't you move in with your partner from the affair? I answered. This is not a jest. He yelled, I won't forgive you. But I didn't care what he said. How is he going to continue to live in an apartment that he had never paid for? It was nonsensical. I then made the following move. I made Paul pay for his adultery, and I made my mother-in-law return the money I had lent her, plus interest. Paul called me the day the invoices arrived, clearly furious. Hey, what's this? How come you're requesting so much money? He insisted. You cheated on me, thus I'm requesting payment. Please pay it shortly, I firmly said. I have no justification for paying that. It's crazy. You have no proof at all, he protested. I have the evidence if you need it. Your admission of infidelity is captured on tape because I taped every conversation we had with your mother recently, I added. Not at all. You got a video of it, he questioned, startled. Yes, I was no longer able to trust you. I can see who visited while I was working night shifts by accessing the elevator video footage from the condo building, if needed. I've also started recording every call we have lately. You may have posed a threat when you said that things wouldn't finish here. I'm going to demand more money, I forewarned. At last, he said, well, it was an error. He said, I won't contact you again, and hung up. I didn't hear from him again after that, but my mother-in-law did get in touch, thinking my husband had told her anything. She kept calling even though I didn't answer, and when I did, she yelled at me. So you finally pick up, you terrible daughter-in-law. It appeared that she had not received any word from my spouse. I've recorded this call and all of our recent calls, I informed her coolly. It's all on record that I lent you $3,000 and that you acknowledged it. There's no use in denying it now. Why not simply reimburse me? My mother-in-law didn't say anything after hanging up after hearing this. Perhaps she knew there was no point in disputing. It wasn't just about the money for me. It was also about exacting revenge on the people who mistreated me. Consequently, my spouse was forced to return to his mother's home after losing the condo. His companion in the affair also deserted him once he was expelled. He made an effort to connect with a variety of individuals, such as clients and coworkers, but when word of his infidelity spread, his reputation was destroyed. He was forced to take on other part-time jobs at significantly reduced salary after losing his employment finally. This was the result of my financial mismanagement. He is currently working non-stop to pay the compensation. In order to repay the money I asked, my mother-in-law was also forced to give up gambling and start working part-time. Thankfully, they stopped contacting me constantly, and these days are quiet. I was transferred to day shifts as the night hours were adequately manned. My manager called me in during this time and stated, "Thank you for working so hard throughout the night hours. You showed the store a lot of support." An offer for a full-time post has been made after the higher-ups took note. Why not seize the opportunity to work a full-time job? It was a really pleasant opportunity to go from a part-time job to full-time employment. I have optimism for the future. I started off with nothing more than a middle school education and have worked my way up to a rewarding full-time career. I'm looking forward to the future.